In this tutorial, I'll be teaching you how to sew this beautiful bustier gown with cloudy sleeves and high-low flare, okay? So I'll be sharing with you the tips and tricks to making this beautiful dress the way it is right here on the video and on the thumbnail. So right here you can see what I got right here. You can see my yoke, you can see the cloudy sleeves looking so beautiful. This is what we got at the back. This dress is actually very beautiful. So you can see the high-low flare. You can see the high-low has a pleated part at the front, as you can see right there. So this dress is actually beautiful. So if this is what you want to learn in this class, I will encourage you to stay to the end of this tutorial. So you can also go over to make that sweetheart design at the front and bead it or use your applique. So now I'm using 1 yard of velvet fabric and 6 yards of Ankara fabric. But then we are going to start drafting from the shoulder, chest line, bust point, under bust, waist line. So I'm marking my lines on the other side so we'll be able to rule the vertical lines. Here is my shoulder line, my chest line, bust point, under bust line and my waist line. So I'm going to label them accordingly. Next, I'm going to impute my shoulder divide by 2 on the chest line and on the shoulder line. My neck width is 4 inches and my neck depth is 3.5 inches. 4 inches by 3.5. You can also use 4 by 4 if you want. So I came down by 1 inch. That is my shoulder drop. I connected a straight line to my chest line for my armhole. I'll get the midpoint and go in by 0.75 inches. On the chest line, I marked my bust circumference divide by 4 and I connected my armhole. My nipple to nipple measurement, I marked it on the bust point all the way to the waistline and I shared my dart 0.75 on both sides, which is 1.5 inches together. My waist divide by 4, I've marked it and I replaced my dart of 1.5 inches and connected. My bust dart is 2 inches. I marked it and shared it into 2 and connected to the chest line. So this is my basic bodice right now. I'm going to share my shoulder seam line into 2, find the midpoint and connect to your bust point. Then I've already marked from my shoulder 6 inches. That is that horizontal line you are seeing right there. So to connect that sweetheart neckline, I'm going to connect from the 6 inches to the chest line, as you can see. So here is my yoke line right now. Next, I'm going to share my dart 0.75, 0.75. That is the over bust. So on that 6 inches line from the shoulder, I marked 0.75 on both sides. This is my over bust dart. So after that, I'll go over to my under bust and I'm going to take my under bust circumference divide by 4. So whatever I left there, I put 0.25 in front and 1.5 inches by the side. And you can see me connecting my bustier. So you can use any method of bustier connection, under bust contouring that you are familiar with. But I like to go with this. So this is my F1 and F2 and the front pattern is ready. So the neck width is 4 inches and neck depth is 3.5 for the front. So we'll go over to the back. For the back, I'm going to take my chest line and my waistline. So here I've marked my chest line and my waistline. That is what I need only for the back. And this is the shoulder line. So I'm going to mark my neck width as 4 inches and my shoulder divide by 2. I marked it on the shoulder and on the chest line. The neck depth is 1.5 inches. That is what I use for the back. So next I'll come down by 1 inch for my shoulder slant and I'll connect a straight line to the chest line. I'll get the midpoint of my armhole and go in by 0.5. My bust divide by 4, I'll mark it on the chest line and connect my armhole. My waist divide by 4, I'll mark it on the waistline. And I'm going to add 1 inch of my darts. So I'm going to divide everything to get the midpoint for my waist dart. So I'll measure what I have from the midpoint to the center back. I'll mark it on the chest line, connect 1 inch below the chest line for the dart. So I shot my dart half inch on both sides. So this is what I got at the end of the day. So I just want to connect a little princess dart, and you can see how I placed my ruler. I just placed my ruler where I feel the princess dart will be relaxed at the back. So I came out by 1 inch and reconnected my armhole curve. So this is what I got. I'm going to go in by 1 inch to contour the back to avoid zipper bulge. Then I'm going to replace what I have right there on the side. I have 1 inch, and I'm going to also measure what I have on the chest line. So whatever you have, add it by the side. I have half an inch too. So I'm going to connect everything, as you can see. So we want to draft the yoke for the back. So I felt like extending that yoke line for the front. That was what I did initially. That's 6 inches from the shoulder. And I want to curve it into the chest line. But at the other hand, I measured from the shoulder line 7 inches. I don't want that part to be too down. So I connected from that 6 inches to the 7 inches. So, but I thought of coming up to the midpoint again, okay? So I want to come up to the midpoint. Instead of going down, I came up. So I'm going to use this other part as my yoke. So you can design anything you want to design at the back. The principle remains the same. So here is my center back, and this is B1, B2. So right now we are going to cut out this pattern. So for the neckline, I made a little adjustment, okay? 3.5 inches is the width of this neckline. So this is where I made the adjustment. So you can use 4x4, you can use 3.5 inches width and 4 inches depth. That is if you want. It's all by choice. So I'm going to extend that line and replace the overbust dart. I replaced it by 1.5 and reconnected my armhole. That is to avoid shortage on that part. Of course, I know you are familiar with this bustier drafting. So I'll just close up my bust dart right now because I've already started cutting out the darts. So I'll close my bust dart and then I'll continue cutting and separating the darts. So here is the bustier for the front, but then I'm going to also cut out the yoke. So I went ahead to cut out the yoke accordingly. So we are cutting the back right now. So I'll just follow the lines as you can see. So the neck width is 3.5. That is the adjustment I made. Initially I used 4 inches, but please, I changed it to 3.5 neck width because I didn't want that neckline to be too wide. So I'm cutting off the zipper contour line. I'll cut through the yoke line. So I'm just taking my time to cut this, as you can see right here. So we'll have a perfect sewing at the end of the day. So here is my darts for the back. I'm separating my dart for the back accordingly. So this is what we got after all. This is the back. So for this back, I just cut out that straight line because it has to match with the yoke. So the back pieces is ready and the front pieces is ready. So all our patterns are ready now. So I matched the chest line and noticed a shortage at the front for the bustier. So I'm going to add up my pepper now to add up that shortage. So I matched F1 and F2 together on the chest line. You can see that shortage. So I just go ahead and blend it up again. Make sure you blend it so when you are sewing it, it will not be short. So I went ahead and cut, as you can see, and the pattern is ready right now. So we are going to cut our patterns right away on fabric. So this is the yoke and this is the fabric. So I used velvet fabric for the body part. So I added 1/2 inch and I'm making a notch to the under bust. My yoke I used Ankara. On the zipper part I added 1 inch. Of course you are familiar with this part. So all we are going to do now is to work on the front piece. So I just go ahead and from the under bust, I'm going to mark my bust radius from the bust point. So whatever your bust radius is, just go ahead and mark the way I'm marking. If you want to follow this pattern of padding, but you can go with any padding of your choice. So I like to pad my bustier this way using my pattern. So right here, I'm going to cut out my bust radius right now. I'll just cut it out on my pattern accordingly. And I'm going to use what I have here to cut out my wadding. So this is the center front. I'll cut my wadding on fold. So I've already cut and I'm marking the upper piece. And I've already made a notch at the bust point. So I bring in my fabric right now. I'm placing this on the velvet fabric. Don't forget to hairstay your main fabric. So I'll secure with my pin and then I'll go over to lay my hairstay on top of the wadding just to stick it very much. So here is what I got. So I'm going to stitch my bustier for fabric and for lining. So my lining, I did not hairstay it, I did not pad it. So I'm going to make notches on the bustier as you can see me do right now. After that, we are going to iron open the bustier as you can see me do right here. So I'll iron flat the down piece. So this is my bustier and this is my lining. This part is ready. You can cut off the excess if you have any excess right there. It's very normal. You just cut it out. I'm also cutting the excess on the down piece. So I did the same for the lining as well. So we'll go over to the back piece. So just go ahead and match the back piece. I added 1.5 inches for my seam allowance on the side and 1/2 inch to join this princess dart for the back. So I'll go ahead to join them. I'm using 1/2 inch, but before I join them, I'm going to pick all of them right side to right side, and I'm done stitching. So after stitching, you can just make notches on the curvy part of that princess dart for the back. Then give it a good press. Open it up and press down. So I've done that for lining and for fabric. So I just cut out the excess I have on the armhole. If you have any excess, just cut it off to match up with the armhole. So this is what I got and the back piece is ready. Next is the yoke. So the yoke, I cut my yoke as you can see. So I used my lining to stitch the neckline. So I'll just place it right side to right side and stitch. Make my notches, then I'll go over to the machine, flip all my seams to the lining and top stitch and give it a good press. For the back yoke, I'm going to repeat practically the same thing. Place them right side to right side, secure with my pin, stitch the neckline, notch, top stitch, and give it a good press. So that is what I'm going to do right away. Of course, you can see me doing it right now. So the back is ready. So next, we are going to stitch the yoke to the back bodice. You place the yoke to the back main fabric and stitch from the zipper point. Make sure you stitch from the zipper 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. After stitching, I place my lining right side to right side and stitched as well and top stitch. So I flip all my seams to the lining and top stitch. So this is what I did. I top stitch on top. So you can see what we got. This is ready. So next we will head over to sew the yoke for the front. So for the front yoke, you first stitch the yoke. You stitch it on the bustier first. So but before that, make sure you make a basting stitch just to hold the fabric and the lining. So I've already started stitching my yoke to the bustier. So I stitch the first part and make a notch at the yoke at the center. So I'll be able to stitch the other side. So I'll head over to the machine now, and I'm going to stitch 1/2 inch from the center front where I made a notch on the yoke. I will stitch 1/2 inch all the way down. So I'm stitching 1/2 inch all the way down. So after stitching, this is what I got for the yoke. So next you are going to make notches. Make sure you make notches before you lay your lining, or else it will be very difficult. So on the stitching line, I chopped it off, so that part will be very light. So I placed my yoke right side, my lining right side to the right side, and I stitched, and I flip all the seams to the lining and top stitch, as you can see. So next is the shoulder line. I'll just pick the yoke part and wrap it up with the back piece. Of course, you know how to do all of this. So you can see what I have now, very neat and clean. So I'm going to sew the size, my 1.5 inches for the side. I've marked it for lining and fabric. So lining to lining, fabric to fabric, that's what I stitched, and I gave it a good press. So this is the inner dress. So the upper piece is ready. We are now marking out the skirt piece. So I started by marking a border line. I'll place my waistline 17 inches. Then I'll mark my hip line, and I'll count 3 inches up from my knee line for the knee line. So I'm just drafting my skirt. So I'll place my waist divide by 4 and add 1.5 inches for seam allowance. Hip divide by 4, add 1.5 inches for seam allowance. Whatever you have there, remove 1.5 inches or 2 inches from it and mark on the knee line. I'm going to connect with my pattern ruler. You can see how I'm placing my ruler to connect that. So I'll add 1/2 inch on the down part where we are going to attach the flay, and the upper part where we are going to attach the bustier. So I'll proceed to cutting out what I just drafted. You are familiar with this part. So I've cut my lining together. Now I'll fold my fabric again because I want to cut the back. So you first mark your zipper line, 1 inch zipper line. Then place the center front on that zipper line, secure with your pin. Then after that, you are going to extend all the lines, the hip line, the knee line, the waist line. You extend all the lines accordingly. Now we'll begin to contour from the waistline to the hip. So I came out by 1 inch and came in by 1 inch. Okay, so 1 inch is the contour line. I'll replace it on the waistline. On the hip line, I did not replace anything. On the knee line, I also replaced 1 inch. Then I'll proceed to mark accordingly. I know you know all of this, okay? So I'm just fast forwarding this part because I know most of you are familiar with cutting a skirt part, and I have a lot of tutorials on this on my channel. So if you don't understand this part because it's too fast, you can just go to my channel and check out how to cut the down part of a gown. Okay, I have it right there on the channel. So here I'm adding 1 inch. This is 1 inch for my zipper. I'll just make a notch, and I'll repeat the same 1 inch, make a notch on the back, so by the time we start sewing them, they will not be confusing. So I will mark my zipper point and begin to mark 1 inch because I'm going to stitch from that zipper point down. So I will mark the same thing on the lining. okay, 1 inch. I'll stitch close this part and leave the zipper part open. So the zipper space there is 9 inches. That's what I usually use. So I've stitched my lining and my fabric together and I'll set it aside. So here is my front piece, and I've marked my seam allowances on lining and on fabric. So I'll go ahead to join the upper bodies, fabric to fabric, lining to lining. I'm going to join them at the center of it. So I'll proceed and stitch 1/2 inch. I opened up the side seam so I'll be able to stitch completely. So after stitching, I'm going to close up the sides. I'll go ahead and close up the sides accordingly. I'm closing that side right now. So after that, we are going to sew the zip. So just go ahead and sew your zip. So what I did was I opened up this part because I was supposed to stitch the fabric and the lining together before I sew my zip. So I'll just go ahead and sew your zip. So that is it. So the dress is ready right now. Make sure you match that yoke line very well with the zipper line, and the waistline has to align at the back. So we want to go over to the flay right now, which is the main purpose of this tutorial. So I'm going to measure what I have on the knee line. I have 21 inches. So we'll begin to make a little calculation. 21 inches is the waistline. The front is 21, back is 21, and I'm cutting 180 degrees for both. So I'm going to divide by 3.14. I have 6.68. So I'll add plus 2 inches for stitching on the side. So if I add plus 2 inches, I will have 8.68, but I'll just make it a rounded figure, 8.65. So 8.5 is my radius. So for the back, I will cut the back first with radius of 8.65. Okay, so I'm just writing it down again. 8.5, that is what I will use. So the back is 8.5 and the length is 22 for the back. So if you add everything together, I have about 30.5. So I'm going to fold my fabric right now. I'll just go ahead and fold my fabric. I'll fold my fabric the way you cut 180 degrees. So I've already folded it and measured to be sure I have 30 inches. So the whole length including the radius is 30 inches with the length, which is 22 inches, 30.5. In fact, I made it 31 inches from this point right I folded. I made it 31 inches. So I'll just go ahead and measure my 8.5 radius. I'll take the 8.5 all around on the radius. So this is it, 8.5 on the radius. Then from that radius, I'm going to measure the length. So the length of my flay, I'm going to measure the length of my flay. The length of my flay is 22. So I just use 22. By the time I finish stitching, I'll have it at 21. So I just marked 22 inches. So I'm taking from that radius 22 inches, 22 inches. I'm going to mark it all the way until I get to that other line. Okay, so I just folded my fabric into two just to cut 180 degrees. So I'll proceed to cut what I have right here. So you cut the radius and cut the other piece. So this one is ready. I made a notch at the center front, so I'll use that to cut my lining. But before then, we are going to cut the front. So the radius for the front is 8.5, and I added 4 inches because of the pleating allowance at the front. So if I add this 8.68 plus 4, I will have 12.68. So I just use 12.5. So the length for the front, we have two lengths. We have 14 and we have 10. So the side of the front will be 14 and the center is shorter, will be 10. So I folded my fabric again the way you fold, just unfold when cutting 180 degrees. So first I have to measure 14 inches using the longer length first. So I measured everything 14 inches. That's exactly what I did, 14 inches. So I measured 14 inches and then I'm going to measure the radius using the new radius of 12.5. So I'll use that 12.68. I used 12.5 right here. So I'll just mark 12.5 as the radius because this part has a pleating. So I'm taking the measurement to be sure is 14 inches. Okay, the length is 14 inches and the radius is 12 inches. So I'll just go ahead and cut it out accordingly. So here you can see me cutting out. So after cutting out, the front piece is ready. So for the front piece right now, the side, I'm going to make it 14 inches. But the front, which is unfold, I'm going to make it 10 inches. So here is 14 on the side, and here I'm going to mark, in fact, I marked 11 inches. I marked 11 inches. And that 11 inches on that center front, I blended it into the 14 inches on the side. So that is how I cut the high low. So you can see the front is shorter and the side is longer. I made a notch at the center front. So if you take the measurement of what we have there, you can see we have enough excess for pleating. You can split it and you can box split it, but we box splitted this dress. So I'm just extruding how the excess is going to look like. So now we are done cutting the flay. The next is to place this pattern. We are going to bring the front, the side of the front, which is 14 inches, match it with the side of the back, which we cut at 22 inches, and blend the excess. Okay, blend it up. I've marked that side, they have to be equal on the side. Then you blend it in towards the center back. So I'm going to cut out right now. You cut out that excess. So the excess, I'll throw it away. So make sure you blend it very properly. So now I'm going to cut lining for them. So I place them on top of the lining and cut. So this is the back piece I cut right now. I'll set it aside, and the front piece too, I made notches at the center front. I'll set it aside. So next is to start joining the sides of the front and the back. So I'll join the sides with 1 inch. So I'll go over to the machine. After joining, you have it as a full circle. You can see what I have. I've joined the back and the front. And again, I'm just taking the measurement to be sure the back, because the back does not have a pleat. So the back has to be this exactly 21 inches. So I'm going to lay the lining right side to right side. Okay, because we are going to use our crinoline to stitch. So here I'm using 3 inches crinoline. Okay, 3 inches width. So I place the 3 inches width of crinoline and stitch 1/2 inch all around. So here I'm using my hemming gum to stitch. So you just go ahead and stitch your crinoline with your hemming gum. Just stitch 1/2 inch all around. So but make sure you hairstay the fabric. If you want this very good effect, please hairstay your fabric, I mean the main fabric. So I hairstayed the main fabric and I did not hairstay the lining. So I just go ahead and flip all the seams to the lining, and you can see I'm top stitching right here. That is what I'm doing. So you flip all the seams including the crinoline seam, top stitch, so you'll be able to have this flay lay very properly. So I'm going to top stitch all the way down, and I gave it a good press. You can see what I got right here, looking so beautiful. So right now I stitched the lining and the fabric together. You can see my hairstay is in between them, so make sure you hairstay the fabric. So next we are going to bring in the dress. You make a notch at the center front. Make sure you make your notch at the center front of the main dress and make a notch at the center front of the flay. So we are going to place this flay right now. We are going to pin it on the joining on the side for the fabric and for the flay. So you can see how I'm putting them right side to right side. You secure them with your pin. So I'm pinning every point. You have to pin the center front, you pin the center back, you pin the two sides. Then after pinning them, you will see the excess for pleating. So make sure you pin them before you go ahead to the machine to stitch, and that is what I'm doing right here. So I made my notch at the center front like I earlier said, and then I'm going to pick up the flay at the center front and match it up at that center front accordingly. So we'll go over to the machine now. You can see the excess for pleating. So on the machine I've already started stitching. So this is my center front and this is the excess. I just want to show you how I pleated the excess. So I made sure the center front is pinned. So while I was stitching, when I got to the excess, I begin to box split it. So this is how I box splitted it. If you just follow what I did right there, you are going to get it. I first lay this first one to the fabric, then bring the two of them back just to make a kissing pleat at the center front at the back. I secured with my pin. So I'll go ahead to stitch on top of all of them using 1/2 inch. So if you measure that pleat, I have 5 inches, okay? So the other side will be 5 inches, making it 10 inches. So I'll go ahead and stitch all the way down. So after stitching, I turned to the other side. I made sure I stitched from the other side, getting to the point of the pleat. I turned it to the other side and repeated the same thing. So here you can see me stitching all the way to complete the stitching for the flay. So I stitched all the way down and the flay is ready right now. So you can go ahead and serge or weave that part. So this is what I got at the end of the day. So you can see the box pleated parts. So the dress is ready on the down piece and this dress is almost ready. So we want to go over to the sleeve right now. So for the sleeve, I cut out a fabric of 22 inches on the length and 15 inches on the width, and you fold it into two. Just fold it into two, mark downwards 3.5 inches, place your basic sleeve and connect it all the way to that 22 inches length. You just mark, you can see how I connected it. So I just go ahead and trim up that excess. So this is the sleeve we are going to mark our cloudy sleeve. So I'll mark out the seam allowances of 1/2 inch. Then I'll begin to mark 1 inch, 1 inch. That is what I used for my cloudy sleeves. So I'll rule the lines horizontally. So after ruling the line, I did the same at the back too. So make sure you make a notch at the center front, at the center grain line. Then you are going to cut out your basic sleeve up to the point of 10 or 9 inches. The length of your basic sleeve should be 9 inches, okay? Then I have 4.5 yards. I use 4.5 yards of net. You can see how I folded it. So the first folded part I marked out 1 inch and the rest spacing is 2 inches. If you want this cloudy sleeve to be more than what I have, you can do 3 inches for your width. So I just go ahead and cut out the first 1 inch, okay? Then I'll begin to cut out the 2 inches, and that is what I'm going to use to sew my cloudy sleeves. So here on the machine, I'm picking up one of the sleeves, and then I'm going to sew on the line. So the hemline, I left 1/2 inch for stitching my basic sleeve. So I placed 2 of these net together. So this is how I'm going to ruffle it. I want you to look at me ruffling it right on the line. So I just placed the net in between. I'm stitching in between of my net. So as I'm stitching, I'm making my gathers accordingly. So you have to really be smart right here, because this sleeve can consume time. So I use like 2 hours, 1 hour for one sleeve and 1 hour for the other sleeve. So you have to be smart and fast, okay? So you keep ruffling and ruffling like that. So that is what I kept doing until I got to the end of one line. So you can see I started from the hemline. Please don't start from the upper part. You have to start from the down part. So you keep pushing the ruffles and stitching on the line as you are coming upwards. So I'll keep sewing and sewing and sewing till I get to the end. So if you have an excess, just cut it out. So next, I'm going to start off from the other line. So from the other line, I'll just push the first ruffle, and I'm going to ruffle just on the next line. So that is how I'll keep ruffling from the down. I'll be coming up like that, like that. So I've gotten to the upper part now. So I'm still ruffling. So I'll keep ruffling like that. So I just want to show you how I'm ruffling the upper part where we have the seam allowances. So I'm not getting the ruffles up to the seam allowance, okay? I kept it straight and trim off following the shape of the sleeve. So I'll come over to the other one, and I'm also going to repeat the same thing, ruffle, ruffle like that. So the ruffles are ready. So next is to bring the basic sleeve. So this is what the back looks like. So I'll bring my basic sleeve right now, and I'm going to place it right side to the ruffle sleeve. So you bring your basic sleeve, place it right side to the ruffle sleeve. So you are picking that seam allowance on the cloudy sleeve. So I'm going to stitch 1/2 inch like that, okay? So I'll go over to the machine and control it. I'm stitching only on the fabric, and I had some little gathers, so you just gather a little into it. Then we'll place it right side to secure with your pin, and sew off your seam allowance. So after stitching, this is how your sleeve will look like. So I measured what I have on my sleeve. I have 8 inches. My bicep is 15. So I just added 1 inch for ease. Don't make it too tight. So I'm taking up the basic sleeve to match up with the ruffle part. So I stitched on it and turned it to the front. So this is what I got, and the sleeve is ready. So here I have the 2 sleeves very much ready. So next, we are going to sew these 2 sleeves to the dress. So I brought my armhole right now, opened up the sleeve, turn it to the wrong side. Then I'm going to insert my sleeve. So when inserting it, make sure you pin the shoulder seam line to the sleeve grain line, and the armhole seam line to the sleeve armhole line. So make sure you pin them accordingly, then you stitch. So the dress is ready, and that is how we'll come to the end of this tutorial. So I believe this class was helpful to you. If you are new to this channel, please kindly subscribe, turn on your notification bell to receive videos like this every day. Like this video, share to family and friends. Thank you for coming. Bye.